Hi everyone and welcome to this Digital Scotland webinar. I am Will and today we will see how to grow global. Marketing to the world, but dealing with the era of coronavirus. Because yes, this is a new era and we have to adapt to it. So what are the challenges for Scottish businesses looking to expand globally in these times? And of course, we will see how they might be addressed. But right before starting, you know that you can check all our content at digitalscot.net. That said, now to explore today's topic, our guest is David Hood. Hi, David, and welcome.
Hi, Willie. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
It's a pleasure. So, David, thanks for accepting this invitation. You are the founder of the Edinburgh Institute, and you truly are, let's say, a marketing guru, if I may, and you help companies to develop their very specific, sharp, competitive advantage. So first, I wanted to know your thoughts about what I said, this new era. Is it all doom and gloom, or do you think there are some reasons to see the glass half full?
That's a terrific question. As a natural optimist and as a marketer, a professional marketer, I think professional marketers are all optimists. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this discipline. I think certainly that COVID and the whole virus pandemic has caused us to look very seriously at the way we do business. And it's not just in terms of operations and working from home, but it's kind of rattled us so much, I think, that we have to start looking at what we actually deliver. And I don't just mean in terms of working from home and changing some parameters around how we work as companies and organizations, but I think it's also as in terms of what we deliver and how the customer sees us and what value we offer, because things have changed markedly, and it's given us this huge opportunity to not just, if you like, digitally transform, because we've all had to do that for some time now, but I think it's also, we have to start realizing just what value we actually deliver and how much of that could actually be online as opposed to offline, how much we could pull in the customer into the company in a way that, funnily enough, we've never done before. So there's an opportunity there to invite somebody in, and we'll cover that perhaps a little more in a few minutes. But rather than looking at it as just something like the technologies and the work operations that we now have to change, rather than looking just technically how we can deliver what we used to deliver, as you said, Willie, a new opportunity to actually reappraise the strategy, how we deliver and what we deliver, and the kind of value that we could deliver by just inviting people into this kind of environment.
Right, so we will come back, I think, on this opportunity idea. You are, David, the founder, I said, of the Edinburgh Institute. So yeah. What's the daily life of the Edinburgh Institute? What do you believe in daily going to work?
Well, the daily life for the Institute, and certainly what I believe in, a lot of problem solving. And I do realize that instead, companies, marketers, business development people, they tend to go out and look for problems to create their own, rather than actually to solve problems for others. Now I'm not saying we don't intend to do that, but sometimes creativity for the sake of creativity is too much. And I think there's a gap there for businesses, especially small businesses, to not just run away and get creative. I like the power of deduction. I like to deduce what needs are required by a market. As professional marketing people, we have not given the SME or the business manager the tools to properly define need. So to answer your question, what I do every day is say, how can we define needs better? Because rather than just clutching around the next technology or the next fad, Twitter today, Instagram tomorrow, blah, 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 what is the defining need for the market? Now, we all know that wanting to define and clarify and find needs is a thing, but we don't have the standard process to do it. So that's what I've been working on for a number of years now, and shrunk this up into 3 or 4 days, whereby a small business can actually see what defines a need in the marketplace. So I guess To answer your question about what do I do of a day, or what does the Institute do of a day, is we love looking at real big conflicts and problems, because the bigger the problem there is in the marketplace or the industry, the bigger the opportunity. And yet we all miss it because we're just trying to grab the latest thing that comes along. So company A does something, so company B does it. And they think they're innovative because they've copied company A. And all they're doing is commodifying or commoditizing their offer. So that's what I do. I get up of a day and I look at the big problems, the big challenges, whether it's in professional services, they've got their core problems, SMEs in general got their core problems, tourism sector's got its core problems. If you start to look at those core problems, then you can get rid of all the different options for promotional activities, for campaigning, for branding, all these wonderful things we can do, but just razor sharp focus on just the one thing. Or laser sharp, I should say, rather than razor sharp.
Yeah, that sounds really engaging and interesting. Solving problems, that's really important. And this year was very specific and created, I think, a lot of problems for companies, and some Scottish businesses know how to adapt themselves to these pandemic times. So what's their secret? What do I need to change if I'm not part of them today as a business?
Well, I think, especially in Scotland, which is a really, really strange and frustrating thing, that the Scottish people, you find a Scots person anywhere in the world. Okay, that's probably a lot to do with the British Empire, but we don't want to talk about that. But you do find Scots all over the place. And, whether it's an engineer on the Starship Enterprise, or it's just, somebody who's made good somewhere else, we tend to do very good elsewhere. And the funny thing is, back home in Scotland, we tend not to have internationally outward-looking businesses. We tend to think that, maybe from Edinburgh to Glasgow is international enough for us, within the country. So I think the opportunity, again, going back to opportunities, because this is what our discussion is all about, is actually to say, well, now is the real time. If we haven't started to look at operations internationally, now we have to do so. And I think that's the key number one thing for Scottish businesses, is actually to say to themselves, well, we haven't been international up till now. We could be international now. And because we've got a finite market here, albeit thriving and still doing well in Scotland, because of the COVID restrictions, people are not moving around so much, products and services are not being able to be delivered as much. Let's start looking globally, because even if you're in a small niche, if you go globally, obviously you've got a larger market, and everybody's now expected to be delivered through the web, digitally, at arm's length now. So there's more people sitting, waiting for you to talk to them. And so, as I say, the number one thing I still think with Scottish businesses is stop thinking just in your backyard. Don't think about just the UK. Think about Europe. Think about the rest of the world. And even though Scotland's been pulled out of the EU through Brexit, which we didn't vote for, by the way, in Scotland, but we need to get back into Europe and broaden our horizons, get in touch with France and other countries, and really export. And because we are a net exporter, Scotland is a net exporter. It's the only nation in the UK that has more exports than imports in terms of value. So the blueprint is there. So we should be grasping the opportunity to use digital transformation to engage with the rest of the world.
Yeah, so we knew the threat of Brexit, but you are talking about exporting, importing. So is it like another threat with the pandemic above this one already?
Well, I think certainly, because physically, obviously, products are being held up. I mean, there's a huge issue with Brexit in particular, and it will be exacerbated by COVID, that there's, say, fresh langoustines and seafood, which is being held up at Dover, at ports, because of Brexit particularly, and also now, with COVID and the lack of movement of goods, then yes, absolutely, I think that's going to be a major issue for us. So the more we can, I'm not saying don't have physical products, but the more we can add on to physical products, things that can be delivered over and above the physical product, the customer service, even the branding, the support, all these other things that could actually be put in place on top of physical products, makes it an awful lot more easier for a small business in particular to keep its customers and to thrive and to not get around the COVID, but start to battle back against COVID or Brexit or any other complications that come along if you start adding the service on top of the product. Because let's face it, just having competitive advantage through one product or another product isn't enough. It's all the things around the product. It's how you look after your customer. Instead of just selling them and saying, cheerio, we'll see you again the next time you want to buy, we'll actually give you a wee phone call and find out if you enjoy the product. And we can invite you into a Zoom meeting. And as I said, I've got a couple of ideas on that front, which I'll share with you in a second.
Right. So I hear you, David. We need to grow. We need to go global. So that's okay. But this is a digital challenge, and this is not open to everyone. What are the key tools do we need, the key technologies that businesses should be using to achieve this? Just an example, we particularly saw the rise of video usage. We're talking about video. Should they be using more of this media, for example, like we are doing currently?
I think, to answer your question, I think, yes, they need to use more technology, but no, they don't need to use all technologies. And I think there's been a danger in the past that we've grasped the next, as I say, the next best thing. So we've had CRM systems, ERP systems, all these three-letter acronyms and all these kind of buzzwords that make us sound like we're an extra in the office, you know, the TV series in the office. We keep coming up with these new paradigm shifts and all this rubbish. You know, it really is really just noise. So the thing is, we know, and you're a good example of this, that we need to have a closer relationship with the customer. All we've done in the past is use websites and you know, forms, filling in forms and emails and stuff as a reason almost not to speak to the customer, or to have AI and have frequently asked questions and all these kind of things, which is fine. But what it's done is it made companies focus on cost reduction, service reduction, client reduction, value reduction, and it's all just done to reduce the whole value of the proposition, which is astounding because we want to use technologies to enhance the product and offer and service. So I say that rather than let's look at, you know, beefing up more CRM systems, because the customer can't be bothered engaging with your CRM system. They don't actually want a relationship half the time, and they certainly don't want to be marketed to. They want to be involved and asked questions. And the best thing you can do is use this kind of medium. And I think to go back to what I was suggesting earlier on, for instance, small businesses, instead of sending out leaflets and brochures and emails all over the place, I'm not saying you don't do email marketing, for instance, or social media marketing, but instead of just finding all this stuff out and hoping that the customer will maybe be interested, that's the usual way, but invite them in and make an event. For instance, I don't know, if you're a company who sells, I don't know, event services, who looks after client events, then why not, instead of just putting out your services and emailing and social media, why not invite them in to a 100-seat event and call it how to market your event or how to host a decent event. Now, we've done that in the past, physically. We've almost done that by producing PDFs and white papers so that people can read as a soft sell. But now you can invite 100 people. I've got a system, and we're looking at the free version can invite in 300 people, and you can do breakout groups and things. So start thinking of yourself rather than just, I'm the customer, there's the market, social media, and all the rest of it. Let's start thinking the middle ground here is what can we invite them into that's going to be extremely good value, and they're going to associate that value, expertise, knowledge with me, the supplier, rather than just me, I'm coming to sell you in a webinar. You know, to get 100 people in a room for a small business cost an awful lot of money before, but now it's just a bit of time and effort and knocking doors. And also the beauty of it is, of course, because people are used to going to having discussions after events, instead of everybody going home, you can say to people, well, actually, for the next 2 days after this event, I'm doing one-to-one Zoom calls with you. and you just keep the sale going. You get the customer engaged, all the questions answered, and you've got the relationship building exercise underway. So if we all see ourselves almost as mini event managers, I think we'll go a long way to actually overcoming the problems with COVID and creating a bridge rather than a barrier.
Thinking differently, but also working differently, I think lockdowns showed us that we could change our way to work ourselves, but also to work as a team and to run meetings as well. You were talking about this. So is there as well an opportunity to be more productive here?
Absolutely. And we all know, those of us who have looked into workplace patterns for long enough, and there's people that know much more about this than I, but by and large, if you're working from home, there used to be this image of people with their slippers on, having wine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and not necessarily being that productive. But it's well known now that people are a lot more productive sometimes, in some ways, at home, because there's less, perhaps they can make less disturbances and diversions. There's not so much chatting over coffee at the water cooler or whatever. And so, I mean, all things being equal, by and large, people can make a lot of their activities at home or in home working or distance working, can make them a lot more productive. It can make people, well, let's face it, even if you had a half hour or an hour commute to your work every day, that's an hour or two you get back every day. So you can actually be much more productive. And also, if you're working from home, you can satisfy a client who's in a different time zone, perhaps, whereas you weren't usually because you had a 9-to-5 job before. So there's all these wonderful things you can do working from home. There's one caveat or two caveats I would like to cover in a minute. But there's also, I think, there was a study done about 20 years ago, and it said that something like a third of the workforce is an information worker. So theoretically, a third of the workforce could work for a lot of the time at home.
The heart of the business, the market has changed, whatever the market. So what about target markets? The pandemic has impacted across the world. Should businesses change which markets they want to expand into? Just a quick example. The other day, I've read that a Chinese tour operator stopped their businesses, being unable, of course, to travel. They switched to the import of luxury items. So is it something to think of?
I think it always is something to think of. And it's a healthy thing to look at what you do and what you deliver and how you do. But there's a great danger in all of that, as well as we get into a difficulty, so we start looking anew. And all of a sudden, everything we all had before is just dissipating and thrown aside. I think what we have to do is make sure that we're delivering to our existing customers with our existing products and services in a way that now takes cognizance of COVID, rather than markedly changing our whole business model. Because it's hard enough just to change to suit the trials and the tribulations and the problems with COVID without actually changing our entire business model. And let's face it, we're not all like that Chinese company who can do that, perhaps do that. And we're not all as agile as we'd like to think we are. And we've got existing customers. And we have to look at the existing customers first. And I know that's an age-old piece of wisdom that it takes, I think it's 6 times or 7 times or 10 times more cost in finding a new customer than it is in satisfying an existing customer or an old customer. And likewise, if you're looking to diversify into different markets for different products and services, that's another factor of costs on top of all of that. So we caution against radically changing your business model, but not radically changing how you deliver. So don't move too far on who you deliver to, because you have an understanding already. But what I would suggest is that rather than just jumping into a different business model or a different market or a different product services, actually jump forward and jump into your customer and find out a little bit more about them.
David, what you do at Edinburgh Institute is to help companies trying to find their competitive edge, right? And what advice would you give me to find my proper competitive edge, but by myself? Where should I start?
Well, what I've always found is I smile when I'm asked that question because the competitive advantage is very rarely, if ever, where or what you think it is. Because most of the time we believe as a company or an organization that we do something and we do it well and we do it better than others. There was a study done a number of years ago, and they took, I think it was, they took a company anyway, they looked at how they think they provide services to their customers. And they said, oh, I think we satisfy about 80% of our customers very well. And what happened was it was a Pareto principle in reverse. Because then the company on behalf of the client organization surveyed the actual customers. And there was only 20% of those customers thought that they were serviced very well or approaching very well. So what we think of ourselves is a wee bubble sometimes. We have our own wee board meetings, our sales meetings, people internally, and we think we know what we do best. And I think, as I said, rarely is the competitive advantage where or what you think it is. It's always something just below the nose. And I'm working just now with Digital Scotland and others on looking at those just below the nose things that everybody's ignoring or everybody can't see because they're too busy looking at the next best fad. And as I say, the competitive advantage and edge is easier to find than you think as well. Rather than coming up with a big, huge creative rebranding, 18-month, 5-year plan, it can be done in a very short space of time. It really can.
David, we used to end our webinars with always the 3 same questions. 3 short questions and 3 short answers. So first one, what's your favorite tech tool or digital tool that you couldn't live without? It could be a software, hardware, an application, I don't know.
Wow. I'm a real technophile because I was one of the first marketers that could actually do HTML coding, but that's another story entirely. So I like technology, but I hate it when it doesn't really augment one's life. The late, great Ellie Goldratt said, technology is only good if it reduces or completely obliterates a major limitation. Unfortunately, most technologies now just add to your limitations and the things you have to. So I guess I would answer the question by saying a technology that actually works first time, because I don't know about you, but our expectation as customers as well of new technologies, whether it's a new phone or a new app, we expect it now not to work first time. We expect it to have helplines and reinstalls and all sorts of conflicts and things. I quite like, I must say though, some of the broadcasting avatar type, because I was talking to you some other time about the whole avatar. Okay, it's a bit not of a novelty, but the whole notion that you can actually use the artificial intelligence to take away the stumbling presenter presenting to camera, I think that's quite a useful technology. So again, I can't really answer the question other than to say it has to be a technology that takes away a limitation, removes it or reduces it. Otherwise, it's just more noise. Because let's face it, I don't know about you, but my mobile pings enough. I don't want anything more, quite frankly.
So I think I may have the beginning of the answer of the next question. What vision of the tech industry do you have for the future?
I would like to see it simplified. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive because if you've got innovations happening all over the world, you've got people using technologies in different ways, you've got new technologies. I would like to see it being a little bit more open source. I think we need a lot more open source technologies because then you really focus on the added value. You don't get all sexed up about the technology. I mean, let's face it. When people are talking about phones, for instance, a good example are the phones. You don't go to a phone broker or a shop or whatever, and they say, well, do you know how a telephone call works in the background with masts and things? You're not interested in all that. You're actually interested in what it can do for you. I think I would like to see technology in particular focus on a little bit more, as I said, about the limitations, yes, and reducing major limitations, not just minor irritations, but major limitations. But I would also like for them to focus much more on the added value stuff, the human element, the user interface. I mean, user interface, even that is wrong, because what we usually end up doing is we as humans have to adapt to the technology. What's that all about? Let's introduce some human psychology, ergonomics, how we work, and let the technology follow us. So I would love if a robot followed me around of a day and said, Dave, I think you can do this, that, and the next thing, and that would make your life a lot easier because you do this, rather than me having to change my entire existence because Apple or Microsoft says so, you know?
You were talking about robots. My final question is, what if I say AI, so artificial intelligence, versus humans? What do you say?
Oh, goodness me. That's a drink for you to come from Paris to Edinburgh, and we'll sit and have a little cognac or a whiskey over, I think. That's a huge answer. And I know that there's at least two schools of thought that AI is fantastic and let's run with it. And there's those at the other end who are saying, well, it's going to be like the Terminator movie ultimately, because AI is going to decide that we're not very, very good. And there's a lot to be said about that, especially when you look at what's just happened or could have happened in the US. We're going down a particularly bad track. But anyway, I think it has to be more humanized. I mean, I think instead of looking at the bytes of information and the fields and the databases and the relational stuff between databases and data mining and information and just all this stuff, I think we have to have some kind of human filters. We almost have to have the 10 commandments of humanizing a technology or a digital equivalent of what we've already got. And I think if we had those 10 commandments or 100 or 1,000 commandments and a prism to say, yes, it actually removes a big limitation. Yes, it actually makes, like the blockchain, it makes things more democratic. It enables humanity to have correspondence and communication about currency exchange and transactions much more transparently and securely. If we look at things through a human prism, then I think those questions, and it won't be a case of AI versus humans, it'll be a case of AI is there to serve the human being rather than the other way around.
Right. We would need 2 hours on this topic. I'm conscious of this, yeah. So we are reaching the end of the interview, and many thanks for your presence at this Digital Scotland webinar, David. And in case someone wants to reach you out, what could they do?
Well, it's quite simple. There's a form on the Edinburgh Institute website, and you can fill it in and pop a wee message to me. And certainly I'm looking to do more with Digital Scotland, and I know there are, and there will be more videos like this on digitalscot.net. And again, looking at some of the case studies as to how companies can really change. It's easy to get me, edinburgh.institute. Just go to the form and fill it in.
Sure, perfect. So, of course, we will add this to the description of the video. Thank you very much. Thanks again. See you very soon, David.
Thank you very much. And goodbye from Edinburgh to Paris, and long live the Old Alliance.
Yeah, I will say goodbye for you, yeah. Thanks, David. So, see you very soon. And for you, if you would like to be interviewed for this Digital Scotland series, contact us at digitalscot.net. That was Will for Digital Scotland webinars. Stay tuned. Bye.